The alarm clock buzzed at 5 in the morning, like it did every day for the past 3 years. Li Jinho rolled out of his narrow bunk and rubbed his eyes. The metal walls of his small room were cold to the touch. Outside his tiny window, the purple sky of planet Cathora was just beginning to show the first light of dawn. Jinho was pulled on his worn work clothes and heavy boots. The fabric was patched in several places, but it still kept him warm during the long shifts at the mining station. He walked to the small kitchen area and opened his food locker. Inside sat 5 protein bars, 2 water bottles, and a small container of vitamin pills. This was his food for the entire week. He took 1 protein bar and broke it in half. He would eat 1 piece now and save the other for lunch. Dinner would be whatever scraps were left in the station cafeteria after the day shift workers had eaten. Cathora Mining Station was not a wealthy place. The company that owned it barely made enough money to keep the lights on and the air recyclers running. The workers who lived here were not important people. They were the forgotten ones, the ones who had no other place to go. Jinho walked through the empty corridors to the maintenance bay. His boots made soft echoing sounds on the metal floor. The station was quiet at this hour, most of the 53. People who lived here were still sleeping. He picked up his tool bag and headed outside to check the perimeter fence. This was his job every morning. The fence surrounded the entire station and kept out the dangerous animals that lived in the crystal forests of Kethra. If the fence had any breaks or weak spots, the creatures could get inside and hurt people. Morning air was crisp and clean. Jinho breathed deeply as he walked along the fence line. His breath made small clouds in the cold air. The purple grass crunched under his feet. In the distance, he could see the tall crystal trees that grew all over this planet. They looked like giant pieces of colored glass reaching toward the sky. Jinho had been walking for about 30 minutes when he heard a strange sound. It was a low rumbling noise, like a machine that was broken. But it was coming from the old mining equipment area, a place that had been abandoned for 2 years. He followed the sound through a gap in the fence that he had never noticed before. The gap was hidden behind some twisted metal and broken concrete. Jinho squeezed through and found himself in a small clearing surrounded by old machines and rusted metal beams. The rumbling sound was louder now. It seemed to be coming from behind. A large piece of equipment that looked like a giant drill, and Jinho walked slowly toward the sound, his heart beating faster. He was not sure what he would find. When he looked behind the drill, Jinho stopped breathing for a moment. There, trapped between 2 fallen metal beams, were the most beautiful and terrifying creatures he had ever seen. They looked like tigers, but they were much larger. Each one was about the size of a small car. Their fur was not orange like Earth. Tigers, but a deep blue color that seemed to shimmer and change in the light. Instead of stripes, they had patterns that looked like flowing water made of silver. Each creature had 6 legs instead of 4, and their paws were huge with claws that could easily cut through metal. But what made Jinho's breath catch in his throat were their eyes. These were not the simple eyes of animals. These eyes held intelligence. They looked at him with understanding and awareness. Like the eyes of a person, there were 5 of them trapped in the small space. The largest one, which Jinho guessed was the leader, had beautiful silver patterns running through its blue fur. 2 smaller ones looked like they might be the babies, though they were still bigger than any earth animal. The other 2 were medium-sized. All of them looked hurt and weak. Their fur was matted and dirty. Some had cuts and scratches on their bodies, but worst of all, they looked hungry. It's very hungry. The large one with silver markings made a low sound, not threatening, but almost like it was asking for help. Its golden eyes looked directly at Jinho, and he felt like the creature was trying to communicate with him. Jinho knew he should run, should go back to the station and tell Manager Park about the dangerous aliens near the fence. That would be the smart thing to do. That would be the safe thing to do. But looking at these creatures, especially the 2 smaller ones who were clearly babies, Jinho did not see danger. He saw a family that was hurt and hungry and scared. He thought about his own hunger, about the half-protein bar he had eaten for breakfast and the other half he was saving for lunch. He thought about how his stomach rumbled every night when he went to bed. Then he looked at the baby creatures again. They were so thin he could see their ribs through their beautiful fur. Ginho made a decision that would change his life forever. He reached into his tool bag and pulled out the other half of his protein bar. He also had a small bag of nuts that he had been saving for a special occasion. There was no special occasion more important than this. He moved slowly toward the trapped creatures. The large one watched him carefully, but did not seem afraid. Jinho held out the food in his open hands. "I know you are hungry," he said softly. "This is not much, but it is all I have." The large creature looked at the food, then back at Jinho's face. It seemed to understand that this human was giving up his own food to help them. Jinho placed the food on the ground and stepped back. The large creature carefully reached out with one massive paw and pulled the food closer. It sniffed the food, then pushed it toward the two smaller creatures. The babies ate first. Only after they had finished did the adults share the remaining food. Ginho watched in amazement. These creatures had the same values as humans. They took care of their young first, even when they were starving. After the food was gone, the large creature looked at Ginho again. This time, it made a soft sound. That almost sounded like thank you. Ginho spent the next hour using his tools to move the heavy metal beams that had trapped the creatures. It was hard work, and he was breathing heavily by the time he finished. But when the last beam was moved, the creatures were free. The large one stood up slowly and walked over to Jinho. For a moment, man and alien looked at each other. Then the creature gently touched Jinho's shoulder with its massive paw. The touch was gentle, almost like a pat on the back. The creature made that soft sound again, and Jinho was sure it was saying thank you. Then the family of alien tigers walked away into the crystal forest, moving like flowing water between the trees. Jinho watched them until they disappeared. He did not know that this simple act of kindness had just begun the most important friendship of his life. He did not know that these creatures would never forget what he had done. He did not know that they would watch over him for the rest of his days. All he knew was that he had helped a family in need, and that felt right. 6 months had passed since Jinho first met the alien tigers in the abandoned mining area. Life at the Kethra mining station had continued much the same way as always. The workers got up early, did their jobs, ate their small meals, and went to bed tired every night. But Jinho noticed that strange things were happening around the station. It started with the old water pump that had been broken for 3 weeks. Manager Park had been waiting for new parts to arrive from Earth, but they were expensive, and the company was slow to approve the order. The pump was important because it brought clean water from the underground springs to the station. One morning, Ginho went to check on the pump, like he did every day. To his surprise, it was running perfectly. The broken parts had been somehow fixed with pieces of crystal that fit exactly where they needed to go. The crystal pieces were cut and shaped so perfectly that they worked even better than the original metal parts. Jinho looked around the pump area carefully. In the soft dirt near the machine, he found large paw prints. They were the same size and shape as the prints he had seen 6 months ago in the abandoned mining area. Over the next few weeks, more strange things happened. The station's communication dish had been bent during a storm 2 months ago.
The workers
Could only send and receive messages sometimes when the wind blew the dish in the right direction. One day, Ginho found that the dish had been carefully bent back into perfect shape during the night. The dangerous rock wolves that lived in the crystal forests had been a problem for years. These creatures looked like large dogs made of stone, and they often attacked workers who went outside the fence. But suddenly, the rock wolves stopped coming near the station. The night watch guards reported that they could hear the wolves howling in the distance, but they never saw them anymore. Food deliveries that went missing in the wilderness started appearing at the station gates. Supply ships sometimes dropped cargo in the wrong places, and the workers would spend days searching for the lost containers. Now, these lost containers were being found and brought back to the station by someone or something during the night. The other workers were happy about these good changes, but they could not explain them. Some thought they were just lucky. Others believed that the old stories about helpful spirits on Kethra might be true, but Jinho suspected something different. He remembered the intelligent golden eyes of the large alien tiger. He remembered how gently it had touched his shoulder before disappearing into the forest. One evening, after his shift was over, Ginho decided to walk into the crystal forest. He had been thinking about the alien tigers every day for 6 months. He wondered if they were still alive, if they were healthy, if they remembered him. The crystal trees were beautiful at sunset. The light from Kethra's sun made the trees glow like giant colored lamps. Purple, blue, and green light danced through the forest as Ginho walked deeper into the woods. He had been walking for about an hour when he heard a familiar sound. It was the same soft rumbling he had heard 6 months ago, but this time it was not coming from trapped and hungry creatures. This sound was peaceful, almost like a song. Ginho followed the sound until he came to a small clearing. In the center of the clearing was a pool of clear water surrounded by the most beautiful crystal formations he had ever seen. The crystals grew in perfect spirals and created natural seats around the water. Sitting around the pool were the 5 alien tigers. They looked completely different from the hurt and hungry creatures he had found 6 months ago. Their blue fur was now clean and shiny. The silver patterns in their fur seemed to move and flow like real water. They were bigger and stronger, and their golden eyes were bright and alert. The largest one, the leader with the silver markings, saw Ginho first. Instead of being afraid or running away, it made a happy sound and stood up to greet him. Ginho walked slowly toward the pool. His heart was beating fast, but he was not afraid. He felt like he was meeting old friends. The large tiger walked up to him and gently touched his shoulder again, just like it had done 6 months ago. But this time, something amazing happened. When the creature's paw touched him, Ginho could feel emotions that were not his own. He felt gratitude, kindness, and something that felt like love. The other alien tigers gathered around him. The 2 smaller ones, who had been babies before, were now almost as big as adult Earth tigers. They rubbed against his legs like friendly cats, making soft purring sounds. Ginho sat down on one of the natural crystal seats. The alien tigers sat around him in a circle. The large one looked directly into his eyes and made a series of different sounds. The sounds were not like any animal noises Ginho had ever heard. They had rhythm and pattern, like a language. Ginho realized that the creature was trying to talk to him. He pointed to himself and said, "Ginho, my name is Ginho." The large tiger tilted its head and made a sound that was surprisingly similar to Ginho. Then it touched its own chest and made a different sound, something that sounded like Rakin. Ginho smiled. Rakin.
Rakin.
Your name is Rakin. Rakin made the happy sound again. Then he pointed to the other tigers one by one. The female with the most silver in her fur was Solara. The 2 young ones were Karos and Vena. The 5th tiger, who had scars on his face, was Thorin. For the next hour, Ginho and the alien tigers tried to communicate with each other. It was difficult, but they made progress. Ginho learned that the tigers were not just animals. They were as intelligent as humans, maybe even more intelligent. Showed Ginho how they had been helping the station. He made gestures that explained how they had fixed the water pump and the communication dish. He pointed toward the direction of the station and made protective movements with his paws. Ginho understood. These creatures had been watching over the station and its people because of the kindness he had shown them 6 months ago. They had been protecting the humans and helping them in secret. When it was time for Ginho to return to the station, Rakan walked with him to the edge of the forest. Before they said goodbye, Rakan did something that amazed Ginho. The large tiger reached into a pouch that Ginho had not noticed before. It was made of woven crystal fibers and hung from Rakan's neck. From the pouch, Rakan took out a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. He placed the crystal in Ginho's hand. When Ginho held it, he could feel the same emotions he had felt when Rakan touched his shoulder. But now, the feelings were even stronger. He felt connected to Rakan and his family in a way he had never felt connected to anyone before. Rakan made sounds that Ginho somehow understood meant friend and family, and always. Jinho looked at the beautiful crystal in his hand, then at Rakan's intelligent golden eyes. "Thank you," he said. Thank you for watching over us. Thank you for being my friend." Rakan touched Jinho's shoulder one more time, then turned and disappeared into the glowing crystal forest. Jinho walked back to the station with the crystal in his pocket. He could feel its warm glow against his leg. He knew that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a maintenance worker on a forgotten mining station. He was the friend and ally of the most amazing creatures in the galaxy. As he reached the station gates, Jinho looked back at the forest. Somewhere in those crystal trees, 5 alien tigers were watching over him and his fellow humans. They were protecting them, helping them, and caring for them. All because of a half of a protein bar and a small bag of nuts shared with hungry strangers. 6 months ago, Jinho smiled and walked into the station. He had important work to do tomorrow, and now he had important friends to help him do it. 2 years had passed since Jinho first spoke with Rakan and his family in the Crystal Forest. During this time, Jinho had learned many amazing things about his alien friends. The Cathari, as they called themselves, were much more than just intelligent animals. They were survivors from a great war that had destroyed their home planet. Their people had been scattered across the galaxy. Hiding from enemies who wanted to kill them all, Jinho had learned their language slowly, meeting with them. In the forest every few weeks, the crystal that Rakan had given him helped him understand their words and feelings. When he held the crystal, he could feel what they felt and understand what they meant, even when the words were difficult. Through their conversations, Jinho discovered that the Cathari had amazing abilities. Their crystal-like fur was not just beautiful, it was also a powerful tool. They could use it to connect with machines and computers in ways that humans could not. They could also sense things that were hidden deep underground, like water, metal, and precious stones. But the most amazing thing about the Cathari was their loyalty. Once they considered someone a friend, they would protect that person for their entire life. They had been watching over the mining station for 2 years because Jinho had shown them kindness when they were hungry and trapped. During these 2 years, Jinho had also become close friends with Kim Sora, one of the station engineers. Sora was smart and curious, and she had noticed that Jinho seemed to know things about the station that he should not know. She had seen him fix problems before they became serious, and she wondered how he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. One evening, after Sora had asked him many questions about his mysterious knowledge, Jinho decided to trust her with his secret. He brought her to the Crystal Forest to meet Rakan and his family. Sora was frightened at first when she saw the huge alien creatures, but when she saw how gentle they were with Jinho, and when Rakan offered her his paw, in greeting, she understood that these beings were friends, not enemies. "They're beautiful," she whispered to Jinho as she watched the young Cathari, Karos and Vena, playing in the crystal pool, and they are so intelligent. I can see it in their eyes. Sora quickly learned to communicate with the Cathari. Good with languages, and the crystal that Rakan gave her helped her understand their words. Soon, she was having long conversations with Solara about their lost homeworld and their hopes for the future. But while Jinho and Sora were building friendships with the Cathari, the mining station was facing serious problems. The easy to reach minerals were almost gone, and the company was thinking about closing the station. If that happened, all 53 people who lived there would lose their jobs and their homes. Manager. Park had been getting worried reports from the company headquarters. The mining station was not making enough money to stay open, unless they found new sources of valuable minerals soon. Everyone would have to leave Kethra within 6 months. One night, after Park had told the workers about the station's problems, Jinho went to the forest to talk with Rakan, explained that the humans might have to leave because they could not find enough valuable materials to mine. Rakan listened carefully to Jinho's words. Then he stood up and walked to the edge of the clearing. He placed his paw on the ground and closed his eyes. His crystal fur began to glow softly. Jinho could feel strange energy flowing through the earth. After a few minutes, Rakan opened his eyes and looked at Jinho. Through their crystal connection, Jinho felt Rakan's thoughts. The Cathari leader was showing him images of the deep places beneath the surface of Kethra. Far below the areas where the humans had been digging, there were huge deposits of rare crystals and metals. You can sense the minerals deep underground. Ginho said with amazement. You know where the valuable materials are hidden? Rakan made the sound that meant yes in their language. Then he showed Ginho more images. The deep places were dangerous for humans because of poisonous gases and unstable rock. But the Cathari could go there safely. Their natural abilities protected them from the dangers that would harm humans. You want to help us, Ginho said. You want to help us find the minerals we need to keep the station open.
Again.
Rakan made the sound for yes. But then he showed Ginho something that made him understand how much the Cathari cared about their human friends. In his mind, Ginho saw images of all the people at the station. He saw Park working late in his office, worried about everyone's future. He saw the other workers talking quietly about where they would go if they lost their jobs. He saw children playing in the small school, not knowing that they might soon have to leave their home. The Cathari had been watching over all of these people for 2 years. They cared about every single human at the station, not just Ginho. We will work together, Ginho said. But we must be very careful. The other humans are not ready to learn about you yet. They might be afraid, or they might try to use you. Rakan understood. He had seen how some humans treated things they did not understand. He and his family would help, but they would remain hidden. Over the next few months, Ginho and Sora worked with the Cathari to set up a secret mining operation. The alien tigers would go deep underground during the night, using their natural abilities to find and extract rare crystals and metals. They would bring these materials to hidden places near the station, where Ginho and Sora could collect them. During the day, Ginho and Sora would process the materials and add them to the station's official mining reports. They were very careful. To make it look like the materials had been found in the areas where the humans were working, the plan worked perfectly. Within 3 months, the station's production numbers had improved dramatically. The rare crystals that the Cathari found were worth more money than anything the humans had ever discovered on Ket Hera. Manager Park was amazed and happy. He sent reports to the company headquarters explaining that new mining techniques had led to the discovery of valuable materials. The company was so pleased that they decided to invest more money in the station and hire more workers. But Ginho and Sora knew that their secret could not last forever. The Cathari were doing dangerous work to help them, going deep underground every night. And Park was starting to ask questions about how they were finding so many valuable materials in areas that had been searched many times before. One evening, as Ginho watched Rakan and his family preparing for another night of dangerous deep mining, he felt worried. These amazing creatures were risking their lives to help humans they had never met, all because of a small act of kindness 2 years ago. We cannot ask you to keep doing this dangerous work, Ginho said to Rakan. You and your family are more important than any minerals. Rakan touched Jinho's shoulder with his paw. Through their crystal connection, Ginho felt the alien's response. The Cathari were not just helping for the minerals. They were helping because the humans at the station had become their family too. When Ginho had shared his food with hungry strangers, he had created a bond that included everyone at the station. This is our home now, Rakan's thoughts seemed. To say these people are our people, we protect our family. Ginho looked around at the 5 alien tigers who had become his closest friends. Rakan and Solara, the wise leaders. Karos and Vena, now fully grown and strong. Thorin, the brave warrior with scars on his face. They had all chosen to make the human mining station their home. Then we are truly family, Ginho said. Family takes care of each other. As the months passed, the secret partnership between the humans and the Cathari grew stronger. The station became more successful than anyone had ever imagined. The company sent messages praising Park's leadership and the workers' dedication, but Ginho and Sora knew that their secret was getting harder to keep. Other people were starting to notice strange things. Workers reported hearing unusual sounds at night. Some had seen large shapes moving in the darkness near the mining areas. The most dangerous moment came when a company inspector arrived to investigate the station's sudden success. The inspector was suspicious and wanted to know exactly how the Workers had found so many valuable materials, Jinho and Sora worked together to fool the inspector. They created fake mining reports and showed him empty areas where they claimed to have found the crystals. But the inspector was not completely convinced. "There is something unusual happening here," the inspector told Park before he left. "I cannot prove it, but I think you are not telling me the whole truth about your mining operations." After the inspector left, Jinho realized that their secret partnership was in danger. If the company discovered the truth about the Cathari, both the aliens and the humans could be in serious trouble. But he also knew that the bond between his people and Raken's family was stronger than any danger they might face. They had created something beautiful together. Friendship between two species that proved different kinds of beings could work together and care for each other. As Jinho walked back to the station that night, he felt the warm glow of his crystal. In his pocket, somewhere in the forest, 5 alien tigers were watching over him and all the other humans at the station. They were family now, and family would find a way to protect each other, no matter what challenges lay ahead. 5 years had passed since Jinho first met Rayon and his family in the abandoned mining area. The Kethra mining station had become one of the most successful operations in the galaxy. The company had built new buildings, hired more workers, and even started a small school for the families who had moved to the planet. The population of the station had grown from 53 people to over 200. Children played in the courtyards while their parents worked. Cafeteria served real food instead of protein bars. People had comfortable homes instead of tiny metal rooms. But Jinho and Sora knew that all of this success came from their secret partnership with the Kethari. Every night, Rakan and his family went deep underground to find the rare crystals and metals that made the station profitable. Every morning, Jinho and Sora carefully added these materials to the official mining. Reports that Cathari had also grown during these 5 years. Karos and Vena had found mates and started families of their own. There were now 12 Cathari, living in the Crystal Forest, all watching over the human settlement. They had built beautiful homes in the deep caves beneath the crystal trees, places where they could live safely without being seen. Manager Park had been promoted to regional director because of the station's success. He was proud of what his people had accomplished, but he still did not know the real reason for their good fortune. One morning, everything changed. Jinho was doing his usual morning check of the perimeter fence when he saw something that made his blood run cold. In the purple sky above Kethra, 3 large ships were approaching the planet. They were not the friendly supply ships that came to the station every few weeks. These ships were dark and angular, with weapons visible on their sides. The ships landed near the station, and armed soldiers in black uniforms marched out. Their leader was a tall man with cold eyes and a cruel smile. He wore the insignia of the hegemony, the military alliance that controlled much of the galaxy. "I am Admiral Vex," the man announced to the gathered crowd of workers. "We are here on official hegemony business. We have received reports that dangerous alien criminals are hiding on this planet." Park stepped forward, confused. "Admiral, I can assure you that we have no aliens at our station. We are a mining operation. We only have human workers here, Admiral." Vex smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Our scanners have detected alien genetic material throughout this area. Creatures we are looking for are called Cathari. They are extremely dangerous predators who have been wanted for war crimes across the galaxy." Jinho felt like someone had hit him in the stomach. He knew that the Cathari were not criminals or predators. They were peaceful beings who had been driven from their homeworld by people like Admiral Vex. "You have 48 hours to find these aliens and surrender them to us," Admiral Vex continued. "If you do not, we will assume you are helping them hide. The punishment for helping alien criminals is death for everyone at this station." The crowd of workers began to murmur with fear. Parents pulled their children closer. People looked around nervously, wondering if there really were dangerous aliens nearby. Park tried to argue with the Admiral. "Sir, we have lived here for years. We have never seen any aliens. Your scanners must be wrong." But Admiral Vex was not interested in arguments. "Our scanners are never wrong. You have 48 hours. He turned and walked back to his ship, leaving his soldiers to guard the station. That night, Jinho and Sora met secretly in the Crystal Forest. Raken and his family were waiting for them. and Jinho could feel their sadness and fear through the crystal connection.
Oh,
They want to take you away, Jinho said to Rakan. They say you are criminals, but I know that is not true. Rakan touched Jinho's shoulder with his paw. Through their bond, Jinho felt the aliens' memories. He saw the destruction of the Cathari homeworld. He saw the hegemony ships attacking peaceful cities. He saw families running and hiding, trying to escape the soldiers who wanted to kill them all. The Cathari were not criminals. They were refugees, survivors of a genocide that the hegemony had committed against their people. We cannot let them take you, Sora said, tears running down her face. You are our family. But Rakan had already made his decision. He showed Jinho images of all the people at the station, children sleeping in their beds, the parents who had found new hope on Kethra, the workers who had built good lives for themselves. You want to surrender to save us, Jinho said, understanding Rakan's thoughts. But we cannot let you sacrifice yourselves. Rakan made the sound that meant family in their language. Then he showed Jinho something that made him understand the depth of the Kethri's love for their human friends. In his mind, Jinho saw every act of kindness that the people at the station had unknowingly received from the Kethri. Every repaired machine, every dangerous animal driven away, every lost supply container returned safely. The Cathari had been taking care of the entire human community for 5 years. They loved these people as much as they loved their own families. There must be another way, Jinho said desperately. I can hide you deeper in the forest. I can help you escape to another planet. But Rakan shook his head. The hegemony would not give up. They would search every inch of Kethra, and they would hurt innocent people to find the aliens they were hunting. The next day, Admiral Vex became impatient. His soldiers began searching the station more aggressively. They questioned workers and examined every building. They used their scanners to trace the alien genetic material, and the traces led them closer and closer to the crystal forest. We know the aliens are here, Admiral Vex told Park. If you continue to hide them, I will order my ships to destroy this entire station. Park was desperate. He truly did not know about the Kethri, and he could not understand why the Admiral was so sure that aliens were hiding on Kethra. That evening, Jinho made a decision that would change everything. He had been thinking about Rakan's sacrifice, and he realized that there was one thing he could do to help his alien friends. He walked to the station's communication center and activated the long-range transmitter. This was the device that sent messages to other planets and space stations across the galaxy. Jinho had learned how to use it during his years as a maintenance worker. He began broadcasting a message to every ship, station, and colony that could receive it. He told the story of the Cathari in the mining station. He explained how a small act of kindness had grown into a friendship that changed the lives of hundreds of people. 5 years ago, I met 5 alien refugees who were hungry and trapped, Jinho said into the transmitter. I shared my food with them because they needed help. Since then, they have watched over us and protected us. They have never hurt anyone. They are not criminals. They are our family. He told the galaxy about Rakan's wisdom and Solara's gentleness. He described how Karos and Vena had grown up to be caring parents, explained how Thorin's courage had saved human lives many times. The hegemony calls them dangerous predators, Jinho continued. But I have lived with them for 5 years. I have seen their kindness and their love. They are better people than many humans I have known. The message was broadcast across the galaxy. On trading stations and colony worlds, people stopped what they were doing to listen. The story of the poor human who fed the alien tigers touched hearts on 1,000 different planets. But Jinho knew that his message alone would not be enough to save his friends. Admiral Vex was not the kind of man who would be moved by stories of friendship and kindness. On the final night before the deadline, Rakan and his family came to the edge of the crystal forest. They were ready to surrender themselves to save the humans they loved. Jinho and Sora stood with them, along with a few other workers who had learned the truth about their alien protectors. They would face whatever came next together, as a family. We will not let them take you alone, Jinho said to Rakan. If they want to hurt you, they will have to go through us first. Rakan touched Jinho's shoulder one last time. Through their crystal bond, Jinho felt the aliens' love and gratitude. But he also felt Rakan's determination to protect his human family, no matter what it cost. as the sun rose on the final day. Admiral Vex and his soldiers marched toward the Crystal Forest. They had tracked the alien genetic traces to their source, and they were ready to capture the Cathari, but they were not prepared for what they found waiting for them at the edge of the forest. Standing between the soldiers and the hidden aliens were dozens of human workers, including Jinho, Sora, and even Manager Park. "You cannot take our friends," Park said, finally understanding the truth about the station's success. "These beings have done nothing wrong. They've only helped us." Admiral Vex laughed coldly. "You foolish humans. You do not understand what these creatures are capable of. Stand aside, or you will be arrested as alien sympathizers." But the humans did not move. They stood together, protecting the family of aliens who had protected them for so many years. The confrontation was about to begin, and Ginho knew that this moment would determine the fate of everyone he loved. The bond between humans and Cathari was about to be tested in the most dangerous way possible. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Crystal Forest as Admiral Vex and his soldiers faced the group of humans who refused to move. Behind the humans, hidden among the glowing trees, the Cathari family waited to see what would happen. "This is your last warning," Admiral Vex said, his hand on his weapon. "Move aside, or you will be arrested as traitors to the hegemony." But more humans were arriving at the forest edge. Workers had left their jobs to stand with their friends. Parents had brought their children to see what was happening. Even the elderly people from the station had come to witness this moment. Manager Park stepped forward. "Admiral, I have been in charge of this station for 10 years. I know every person who lives here. If there are aliens among us, then they are our neighbors and our friends. We will not let you hurt them." Admiral Vex was growing angry. He had expected to find dangerous predators hiding in the forest, not a community of humans protecting alien refugees. "You do not understand," he said through gritted teeth. "These creatures are killers. They destroyed entire cities on their home world. They are a threat to every human in the galaxy." "That is a lie," said a voice from the crowd. It was Jinho, stepping forward with the crystal that Rakan had given him glowing in his hand. "I have lived with them for 5 years. I have seen their hearts. They are not killers. They are the kindest beings I have ever known." Admiral Vex stared at the glowing crystal in Jinho's hand. "You have been infected by their alien technology. They have brainwashed you," Jinho said calmly. "They have shown me what real friendship means. They have taught me that kindness is stronger than fear." At that moment, something amazing happened. From space stations and colonies across the galaxy, ships began arriving at Kethra. The message that Ginho had broadcast had spread through the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. The first ship to land was from the Centauri Trading Alliance. The captain was a woman named Alina, who had heard Ginho's message while her ship was traveling between star systems. "We came to witness the truth," Captain Alina announced as she stepped off her ship. "The story of the human and the alien tigers has reached every corner of the galaxy. We want to see these creatures for ourselves." More ships arrived throughout the morning. Traders, explorers, scientists, and even some hegemony officers who disagreed with their orders. They came from dozens of different worlds, all drawn by the story of friendship between species. Admiral Vex realized that his simple capture mission had become a galactic incident. Representatives from major governments were arriving to observe what happened. The news reporters were broadcasting everything across the galaxy. "And this changes nothing," Admiral Vex said, but his voice was less confident now. "These aliens are still dangerous criminals." "Then let us see them," said Dr. Martinez, a famous scientist who had just arrived from Earth. "If they are so dangerous, show us proof of their crimes." The crowd was growing larger by the hour. Hundreds of people from dozens of worlds stood in the clearing, all waiting to see what would happen next. Finally, Jinho made a decision that would change everything. He walked to the edge of the forest and called out in the Cathari language, "Rakan, my friend, the galaxy is watching. It is time for them to see the truth." Slowly, majestically, the Cathari family emerged from the crystal forest. A gasp went through the crowd as people saw the aliens for the first time. The Cathari were magnificent creatures, their blue and silver furs shimmering in the sunlight. They moved with grace and dignity, their golden eyes showing intelligence and wisdom. Rakan, now, even larger and more beautiful than he had been 5 years ago, walked directly to Jinho. The alien leader placed his massive paw on Jinho's shoulder. In their traditional greeting, the crowd watched in amazement as the fearsome predators that Admiral Vex had described showed nothing but gentleness and peace. Solara approached a group of human children who had been watching with wide eyes. Instead of running away in fear, the children reached out to touch her soft fur. She lowered her head so they could pet her, making the soft purring sound that meant happiness in her language. Karos and Venna brought their own cubs forward. The young Cathari, no bigger than house cats, played with the human children while their parents watched protectively. "These are the dangerous predators you spoke of," Dr. Martinez said to Admiral Vex. "They appear to be a peaceful, family-oriented species." "Do not be fooled by their act," Admiral Vex replied, but his words sounded weak now. "They are masters of deception." Jinho stepped forward, with his crystal glowing brightly. "Let me show you the truth about the Cathari," he said to the crowd. "Let me share with you what I have learned in 5 years of friendship." He held up the crystal, and somehow its light seemed to reach everyone in the clearing. Through the crystal's power, the crowd could feel what Jinho felt when he touched Rakan's mind. They felt the Kethri's memories of their destroyed homeworld. They saw the truth about the war that had scattered their people across the galaxy. They felt the aliens' love for their human friends and their dedication to protecting innocent lives. The crowd was moved to tears as they experienced the depth of the Kethri's kindness and loyalty. They saw how these magnificent creatures had spent 5 years secretly taking care of the humans at the mining station, asking for nothing in return. "This is impossible," Admiral Vex said, but his voice was shaking now. "The reports clearly state that these aliens are dangerous." "The reports are lies," said Captain Alina. "We can all feel the truth now. These beings are refugees, not criminals." More and more people stepped forward to meet the Cathari. Scientists wanted to study their amazing abilities. Traders wanted to learn about their technology. Children wanted to play with the alien cubs. But Admiral Vex was not ready to give up. He had spent his entire career hunting Cathari across the galaxy. He could not accept that everything he believed was wrong. "I have my orders," he said, drawing his weapon. "I will complete my mission." The crowd gasped as Admiral Vex pointed his weapon at Rakan. But before he could fire, something incredible happened. The young Cathari Karos and Venna stepped in front of their father. Their crystal fur began to glow brightly, and suddenly a shimmering shield of energy appeared. Around the entire group, the shield was beautiful, like a soap bubble made of rainbow light. Admiral Vex fired his weapon, but the energy beam bounced harmlessly off the shield. "Defensive technology," Dr. Martinez said with amazement. "They are protecting us all, not just themselves." Other hegemony soldiers raised their weapons, but Captain Alina and her crew stood between them and the aliens. More and more people joined the human shield, refusing to let the soldiers harm the Cathari. "Stand down, Admiral," came a voice from the sky. A new ship was landing, much larger than the others. It carried the flag of the Galactic Council, the organization that made laws for all the civilized worlds. Counselor Wong stepped off the ship with a team of official observers. "Admiral Vex, you are ordered to withdraw your forces immediately. The Galactic Council is taking control of the situation." Admiral Vex's face was red with anger. "You cannot stop me. I have legal authority to capture these criminals." "Your authority has been revoked," Counselor Wong replied calmly. "Council has reviewed the evidence against the Cathari. We have found no proof of the crimes you claim they committed. Furthermore, we have substantial evidence that the hegemony's war against the Cathari people was based on lies and prejudice." The crowd cheered as Admiral Vex and his soldiers were forced to retreat to their ships. The immediate threat was over, but Jinho knew that this was just the beginning. Over the next several days, representatives from across the galaxy studied the situation at Kethra. They interviewed the humans who had lived alongside the Cathari. They observed the aliens' peaceful behavior and their amazing abilities. Dr. Martinez spent hours with Rakan, learning about Cathari culture and technology. They are one of the Most advanced species I have ever encountered, she reported to the Galactic Council. Their knowledge could benefit the entire galaxy. The story of the mining station became famous across all the civilized worlds. People called it the miracle of Kethra and the testament of friendship. But for Ginho, the most important moment came when Counselor Wong made an official announcement. The Galactic Council hereby grants full citizenship and protection to the Cathari people, she declared, are no longer refugees or criminals. They are our neighbors and our friends. The crowd erupted in celebration. Humans and Cathari embraced each other, knowing that they had won something more valuable than any mineral or crystal. As the celebration continued, Ginho sat quietly with Rakan under the crystal trees. The alien leader was older now, his silver markings more prominent, but his golden eyes still shone with intelligence and kindness. "We did it, old friend," Ginho said softly. "We showed the galaxy that different species can live together in peace." Rakan touched Jinho's shoulder with his paw, and through their crystal bond, Ginho felt the alien's gratitude and love. But he also felt something else, something that made him sad. Rakan was getting old. The years of hard work and worry had taken their toll on the Cathari leader. He would not live forever, and Ginho realized that their time together was precious. "We have built something beautiful here," Ginho said, looking at the mixed crowd of humans and Cathari celebrating together. "Whatever happens next, we have proven that friendship can overcome fear." Rakan made the sound that meant forever in the Cathari language. Then he showed Ginho images of the future of human and Cathari children growing up together, of two species working side by side to build a better galaxy. The bond they had created with a simple act of kindness had grown into something that would last for generations. The poor human who had fed the alien tigers had changed the course of galactic history. But the most important change was in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed this miracle. They had learned that kindness was stronger than fear, that friendship could bridge any gap, and that the universe was a more beautiful place when different species worked together. The final stand at Kethra had become the first step toward a new age of peace and understanding across the galaxy. 20 years had passed since the day that changed the galaxy forever. The small mining station on Cathara had grown into a beautiful city that people came from across the galaxy to visit. The crystal forests had been carefully preserved, and new buildings were designed to blend with the natural beauty of the alien trees. Ginho was now 73 years old. His black hair had turned gray, and his hands were not as steady as they once were, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had first moved him to share his food with hungry aliens so many years ago. The old maintenance worker had become famous throughout the galaxy as the man who started the Great Peace. Books had been written about his story. Children on 100 worlds learned about the day he chose compassion over fear. But Ginho did not care about fame or recognition. What mattered to him was the world he saw when he looked out his window each morning. Human and Cathari children played together in the crystal gardens. Human scientists worked alongside Cathari engineers to develop new technologies. Cathari teachers shared their wisdom with human students, while human doctors learned to care for alien patients. The city had become a symbol of what was possible. When different species chose to work together instead of fighting each other, representatives from across the galaxy came to study the partnership between humans and humans. But the most important changes were in the smaller, quieter moments. A human grandmother teaching a young Cathari cub how to bake bread. A Cathari elder sharing stories with human children. Families that included both species, bound together by love rather than biology. Soiree. Now the city's chief engineer had married a human man named David, who had arrived as one of the first new settlers. Their daughter, Hannah, was best friends with Vena's youngest cub, Kira. The two young females, one human and one Cathari, were inseparable. Manager Park, now called Mayor Park, had become one of the most respected leaders in the galaxy. He often spoke at conferences about the importance of accepting refugees and helping those in need. But it was Rakan who had changed the most over the years. The magnificent Cathari leader was now very old. His blue fur had turned mostly silver, and he moved more slowly than he once did. but his golden eyes still held the same intelligence and kindness that had first impressed. Jinho Rakan had become something like a grandfather to the entire city. Human and Cathari children alike came to him for advice and wisdom. He had learned to speak perfect human languages. His speeches about peace and friendship were famous throughout the galaxy. Solara had passed away 3 years earlier, dying peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her family. Rakan had grieved deeply for his lifelong mate, but he had found comfort in the love of his extended family, which now included hundreds of humans and Cathari. Karos and Vena had both become leaders in their own right. Karos was the head of the city's mining operations, using his natural abilities to find valuable materials without harming the environment. Vena had become a teacher, helping young Cathari learn to use their special abilities while also teaching them about human culture. Thorin, the warrior with scars on his face, had become the city's protector. He trained both human and Cathari security forces, teaching them to work together to keep the peace. The city's success had changed the entire galaxy. The hegemony had been disbanded, and its leaders had been put on trial for their crimes against the Cathari people. New laws had been passed protecting the rights of all species. Admiral Vex had spent 10 years in prison for his role in the persecution of the Cathari. When he was released, he had come to Kethra to apologize. Rakan had forgiven him, showing the same compassion that had made their species great. But as Jinho grew older, he began to worry about Rakan's health. The old Cathari leader was spending more and more time resting, and he moved with the careful steps of someone whose body was wearing out. One evening, as Jinho sat in his favorite chair reading a book, Sora came to visit him. She looked worried. "Jinho, I think you should come see Rakan," she said softly. "He's been asking for you." Jinho put down his book and followed Sora to the crystal forest. They found Rakan lying on a bed of soft moss near the pool, where Jinho had first learned to communicate with the Cathari family. The old alien leader looked very weak, but his eyes brightened when he saw Jinho approach. "My old friend Rakan," said in perfect human speech, "I have been waiting for you." Jinho knelt beside his friend and placed his hand on Rakan's massive paw. The crystal that had connected them for so many years still glowed softly. Through it, Jinho could feel Rakan's thoughts and emotions. "You are tired," Jinho said gently. "You have carried so much responsibility for so long." "I am not tired," Rakan replied. "I am grateful. I have lived to see our children grow up together. I've watched our two species become one family. What more could any being ask for?" Around them, the entire Cathari clan had gathered. Karos and Vena sat with their cubs. Thoron stood guard nearby. Even the youngest Cathari, some born after the Great Peace, had come to pay their respects to the leader who had guided them for so many years. But it was not just Cathari who had come. Hundreds of humans had also gathered in the Crystal Forest. Mayor Park was there, along with his wife and children. Dr. Martinez had flown in from Earth when she heard that Rakan was dying. Even some of the original miners who had worked at the station 20 years ago had returned. "Look around you, Jinho," said Rakan. "Look at what we built together." Rakan lifted his head with great effort and looked at the crowd of humans and Cathari standing together in the glowing forest. Children of both species played quietly while their parents watched with tears in their eyes. "This is what I dreamed of," Rakan said softly. "This is what I saw in my mind the day you first shared your food with us. I saw a future where our children would never know the fear and hatred that our generation experienced." Through their crystal bond, Jinho felt Rakan's memories of that first day. He saw himself as Rakan had seen him, a thin human in patched clothes, offering half of his meager meal to starving aliens. He felt the aliens' amazement at such kindness from a stranger. "You gave us more than food that day," Rakan continued. "You gave us hope. You showed us that not all humans feared what they did not understand." "And you gave me more than friendship," Jinho replied. "You gave me a purpose, showed me that one small act of kindness can change the world." As the night wore on, Rakan grew weaker, but he was not alone. His entire family, both Cathari and human, surrounded him with love and support. Young Hannah, Sora's daughter, came forward with her friend Kira Vena's cub. Two young females, one human and one Cathari, had made a gift for the dying leader. "We made this for you," Grandfather Rakan Hannah said, using the title that all the children called him. She held up a small sculpture made of crystal and metal, shaped like a human and a Cathari, standing together. Rakan's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the gift. "It is beautiful," he said, "just like the world you will inherit." At the two young females, representatives of the future he had helped create, "Promise me that you will always remember this moment. Promise me that you will tell your children about the day when enemies became friends." "Promise, Grandfather," Kira said in her soft, musical voice. As dawn approached, Rakan's breathing became more labored. Ginho could feel through their crystal bond that his friend was preparing to let go of life. "I am not afraid," Rakan whispered. "Well, I have lived to see peace between our peoples. I have watched our children grow up together. I have no regrets." Jinho felt tears rolling down his face. "I will miss you, my friend. I will miss our conversations under the crystal trees." "I will not be far away," Rakan replied. "Shh, every time you see a human and a Cathari working together, I will be there. Every time you hear a child laughing without fear, I will be there. The bond we created will last forever." As the sun rose over the crystal forest, Rakan closed his golden eyes for the last time. His breathing stopped, and his massive body became still. But in that moment, something beautiful happened. The crystal trees around the clearing began to glow more brightly than anyone had ever seen. The light seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a heartbeat, as if the forest itself was saying, "Goodbye to the great leader." Every crystal in the city began to glow as well. The Kethri's fur shimmered with waves of silver and blue light. Even the crystal that Jinho carried in his pocket blazed with radiance. The people of Kethra stood in respectful silence as the light show continued for several minutes. Then slowly the crystals returned to their normal gentle glow. "He is at peace," Vena said softly. "He is with Solara now." In the days that followed, beings from across the galaxy came to Kethra to pay their respects to Rakan. A great ceremony was held in the Crystal Forest, where speakers from dozens of worlds talked about the Cathari, leaders' impact on galactic civilization. But the most moving moment came when young Kira, representing the new generation of Cathari, stepped forward to speak. "Grandfather Rakan taught us that the strongest bonds are not made of blood or species," she said in her clear young voice. "They are made of love and respect and the choice to care for each other." She looked at her human friend Hannah, who stood beside her. "We are the children of his dream. We are the proof that his sacrifice was not in vain." After the ceremony, Jinho walked alone to the spot where he had first met Rakan 20 years ago. The old mining equipment was still there, now covered with beautiful crystal growths. A small monument had been built to mark the place where the friendship between species had begun. Jinho sat on the ground and pulled out the crystal that Rakan had given him so many years ago. It still glowed softly, and when he held it, he could still feel an echo of his friend's presence. "We did it, old friend," he said quietly. "We showed the galaxy that kindness is stronger than fear." As he sat there, Jinho thought about all the changes he had witnessed. The mining station had become a thriving city. Cathari had gone from being hunted refugees to respected citizens. Children who had never known war or prejudice played together in the Crystal Gardens. But most importantly, the galaxy had learned that different species could live together in peace. The partnership between humans and Cathari had inspired other worlds to welcome alien refugees and to build bridges between species. The poor human, who had fed the alien tigers, had indeed changed the course of history. But he had done it not through grand gestures or speeches, but through simple acts of kindness and compassion. As Jinho stood up to return to the city, he saw a familiar sight. A group of young Cathari cubs were playing with human children near the crystal pool. They were laughing and running together, their different species meaning nothing to them. One of the human children had scraped her knee and was crying. Without hesitation, one of the Cathari cubs came over and gently licked the wound clean, then nuzzled the child's cheek to comfort her. Ginho smiled as he watched the scene. Rakan's spirit lived on in these children, their natural kindness and their acceptance of each other. The old man walked home through the crystal forest, his heart full of gratitude for the life he had lived and the friendships he had made. Behind him, the crystal trees glowed softly in the evening light. Somewhere in their branches, the spirit of a great leader rested peacefully. Knowing that his legacy would continue forever, the poor human had fed the alien tigers once, but the bond they had created would never be broken. It would pass from generation to generation, a reminder that the universe was a more beautiful place when different beings chose to care for each other. And in the crystal forests of Cathra, that lesson would be remembered and celebrated for all time.